Assalamu alaikum, everyone. I hope you are doing well, enjoying your weekend, are in good health, and your family is doing well. Today, we're going to look at Solana and compare it to Ethereum and see which of these cryptocurrencies has more upside. I've been talking a lot about Solana recently, and I like to be data driven, and I like to check on my thesis every now and then to make sure that trends are still as favorable as when I made my initial investment decision and are being reinforced versus they are perhaps changing. So we're going to look at Ethereum and Solana and see from a data perspective which has more upside based on that data. So without further ado, let's get started. If you like these videos, make sure to leave a like. I'd really appreciate that. So, before we get started, this is not financial advice, so make sure to do your own due diligence before making any investing decisions. So, what are Solana and Ethereum? I'm assuming you have a pretty good idea just by virtue of you tuning in. But for those who are less familiar, Solana and Ethereum are blockchain platforms that support smart contracts and decentralized applications. The prices of their native currencies, which is really what we're interested in, Ether and Sol, the prices of these native currencies are a function of demand for the services of their respective platforms. So the Solana blockchain and the Ethereum blockchain. So let's do our comparison between the two. So I want to look at throughput first. And throughput is a better measure than number of transactions because number of transactions doesn't tell you how much data is being transferred per transaction. What does each transaction mean? Is it a small transaction? Is it a large transaction? When you look at throughput, you don't have to worry about that because you're looking at actually how much information is flowing through the system. And you can see that Ethereum has a decided advantage over other players, including Ethereum, which is actually lagging behind most other players nowadays. And Solana has more than 3 orders of magnitude better performance than Ethereum in terms of the throughput that it can handle. The second thing that I like to look at is, and this is a function of throughput as well, but the speed at which transactions are being processed. So with Solana, you only need one block in order to have confirmation, and the block time is sub half a second. Whereas with Ethereum, you're looking at 12 blocks until confirmation, with each block taking around 3 minutes. So it's vastly different in terms of performance speed wise. The next thing we're going to look at is transaction fees. So as it relates to using a blockchain, you want it to be fast. Obviously, you want it to be secure, but you also want the transaction fees to be low. And the line in blue here is Ethereum. The line in yellow isn't Solana. It's actually Bitcoin's fees. And the line that's parallel to the x-axis at the very bottom is the Solana USD fees. And what you'll notice is not only are Solana fees much lower than Ethereum and Bitcoin fees, but also they're a lot more predictable. You can see it's just a straight line that's hugging the zero axis. Whereas with Ethereum, the price of your transaction is going to depend on the congestion on the blockchain at the time. So it's less predictable. So higher fees and less predictable make it, I think, objectively inferior to Solana with respect to fees. There's another aspect of Solana and Ethereum that isn't really talked about that much, which is the localized fee markets that Solana has versus Ethereum. So with Solana, you can have different activities on the blockchain priced differently. So if there is congestion or high demand for a certain type of activity on the blockchain, this activity can be priced differently. And also, that congestion is not going to bleed over to all other activity that is being done on that blockchain. Whereas with Ethereum, you have basically a monolith. You have fees being the same throughout the blockchain. It depends on overall congestion on the blockchain. And also, if you have congestion in any one activity type, that's going to affect everything. So you have more, I think, durability and flexibility with Solana versus Ethereum. Another aspect of investing in any coin is the inflation rate of that coin, how many different coins get released every unit of time. And with Solana right now, we're at around 5.5 percentage annual inflation rate. And it is scheduled to actually reach a steady rate of inflation of 1.5%. Whereas with Ethereum, the inflation rate again is a function of overall activity on the blockchain. Sometimes it's positive, sometimes it's negative. Right now, the inflation rate is negative, which means the supply is actually shrinking. That is good for investors, but it's not reliable because, as I mentioned, it really depends on the activity on the blockchain. It could turn to be positive and it could be positive in a big way. So, yes, there is the opportunity for negative inflation, which would help out investors, but that's you can't really rely on that. And with regards to weekly active developers, so in order for us to predict, what do we think will happen, how fast the progress on each blockchain will progress, with Solana, you have close to 400 developers. With Ethereum, you have north of 1,500 developers. So a lot more developers are on Ethereum than are on Solana. Now, this doesn't say anything about the quality of developers. So Solana is actually known to have very high quality developers. And this is a function of the Solana language being requiring higher quality developers to deal with. So that's both a positive and a negative, I think. I think Ethereum's language is more accessible to more developers, so it does have an advantage with that regard. However, because of the niche nature of Solana's development language, it tends to attract higher caliber developers than Ethereum. And I think the results speak for themselves in terms of the output of these developers, which I think in Solana's case, if you look at the structure and the transaction fees and the speed and all of the things that affect the usability of the blockchain, I think that the Solana developers have done a better job than Ethereum's developers. So in summary, if we're looking at a comparison of what I would consider major metrics for usability for these blockchains. And this usability ultimately affects how many people actually use the blockchain, which ultimately affects demand for their respective native currency. You can see that throughput, transaction speed, transaction cost, inflation. Inflation I put equal between Solana and Ethereum in terms of both giving a thumbs up, because with Ethereum, yes, you do have the opportunity for negative inflation, which is good for investors, but you don't really have any predictability, and it could actually turn to be positive. Whereas with Solana, you have a predictable schedule that you can kind of bank on as an investor. With developers, Ethereum, I'm going to kind of not really consider the quality of developers. Just going by number, I think Ethereum has an advantage in that regard. So let's look at the results of these factors that we talked about because ultimately things have to make sense. If we're saying that transaction speeds are better, transaction costs are lower, there's a lot of advantages to Solana, we should see this translate into usage metrics. So let's look at these usage metrics. So for daily active users, Solana we have in the purple color, it exceeds the daily active users of Ethereum. So we have close to 600,000 for Solana versus around 350,000 for Ethereum. And for number of transactions, Solana versus Ethereum, we have close to 23.5 million for Solana versus 1.1 million for Ethereum. For the volume of transactions done, advantage goes to Ethereum. So you have 11 billion in daily volume for Ethereum versus 2.1 billion for Solana. And the volume of decentralized exchanges is in Ethereum's favor. So 1.3 billion for Ethereum versus Solana's around 500 million. And there was a period in December, this last December, where the volume in decentralized exchanges for Solana actually exceeded that of Ethereum. Now, with all this taken into account, I think that the trend, there are certainly some metrics where Solana has already beat Ethereum, even though it was established much later than Ethereum. And for other metrics, Ethereum still has an advantage, but you can see, like, for example, the DEX volume, you can see the volume or the difference in volume is narrowing with time. And I think eventually Solana will overtake Ethereum. So it's a battle for supremacy between these two blockchains. And yet, when you look at the respective market caps for these two blockchains, there's a very big difference. So you have 270 billion for Ethereum versus just 40 billion for Solana. So I think that this difference is going to shrink with time. And I also think that this number is going to go up. So, the difference could shrink, but both numbers could go down. But I think that given that the market cap of crypto overall is going up, I think it makes sense that the market caps for these respective tokens will go up, but the difference between their market caps will go down with time. So with that, I think that there's more upside. This is why I'm saying there's more upside to Solana at this particular point than there is with Ethereum as an investment. Now, this is not to say that there are not other players that are up and coming that one should keep an eye out on. I'm always analyzing these other players, but I still think Solana is the one to beat at this point. As an investment, if you're looking to invest in any sort of layer one blockchain, I think Solana has the most merit at this particular point in time. But with crypto, everything is changing very fast, so one must keep an eye on competition in order to not get burned. But so I will try and update you as my ideas evolve. If you enjoyed this comparison, you found it useful, be sure to subscribe. If you want even more value, become a PIF member. I hope you found this beneficial. Definitely leave a like. Wayakum, Muhammad, thank you for your comment. Until next time, take care of yourself. Assalamu alaikum, and peace be upon you all.